Welcome class to our module on technology and society. In this lesson, we'll be discussing misinformation on the web.
Did I go up the stairs this time, Doctor?
No, it was the same as before. You almost bring yourself to see the truth, and then you...
But what truth? All I know is that death in its most hideous form waits for me at the top of those stairs.
That's not all you know, Mrs. Justin. You hold the answer deep within your own mind. Consciously, you've forgotten it. That's the way the human mind works. Whenever something is too unpleasant, too shameful for us to entertain, we reject it. We erase it from our memory. But the imprint is always there. Nothing is ever really forgotten.
But don't all of us do things we're ashamed of?
It wouldn't be human if we hadn't.
Yeah, so a little bit of foreshadowing on some of the topics we'll be discussing. In addition to research on just the internet, right, and its use in misinformation, spreading disinformation. We'll also be looking at psychology. We'll be looking at many fields that all tie back in together on how misinformation affects us and affects society. So what exactly is misinformation? We can look to research for those definitions. So there are several definitions of misinformation, which it refers to false, inaccurate, or incorrect information. It's essentially the opposite of information. Now, by contrast, disinformation, so with a D in front rather than the M, is false information that is also described as being intentionally shared. So this is different from satire, parody, and propaganda. However, rumors, right, gossip, different like synonyms, right, for misinformation. Those are like really old, right, terms. Misinformation's definitely not new, but there are definitely predecessors, right, to misinformation. So we have fake news, for example. That's a more modern term, right, as coined by President Donald Trump. But yeah, research on this topic dates back many decades. And if we look at history, we'll notice that misinformation is really not new at all. So looking at stats from the Pew Research Center and the National Academy of Science, they estimate that around a quarter of Americans consume their news via online news sites, and about another 20% prefer social media as their top news source. That means altogether, more than half of Americans rely on internet media for their information. So as we can see, right, in the modern age, we're no longer relying on TV sources, newspapers, right? We're moving away from that as the internet kind of dominates the communications and media realms of society.
Man, it's been a long news week. Time to unwind with a little Facebook.
Facebook continues to be under fire for failing to crack down on fake news. It's been called a haven for fake news.
Russian trolls used Facebook to exploit racial tension.
Did you fall for propaganda from a Russian troll?
Jesus. Facebook is dead. YouTube.
YouTube is the latest social media company under the microscope.
Ads running on YouTube channels that promote white nationalism.
Trending tab featured a conspiracy video that attacked survivors of the Parkland shooting.
God, never mind. Time for thirst traps on Instagram.
Russian bot ads appeared on Instagram. Thousands of ads posted on Instagram meant to divide Americans.
Okay, that's it. I'm going back to my true safe space. The one place where nobody can hurt me. Pinterest. Oh my God, what happened to Pinterest? There's nowhere to go anymore. Every social media site has become a dumpster fire. Why is this happening? What's turning all these sites into fever swamps? Ah, crap, it's me, isn't it?
Yeah, so the research on misinformation continues to develop, and there's really not a consensus on, how bad the problem is on the internet. There are some trends that are apparent in the current data that can help shed some light. So while it might seem like misinformation, right, is worse than ever, we'll see right throughout history that this is really not a new dilemma, right, in society. And as far as like how much it's plaguing the internet, Some research will say, right, it's the biggest problem. Other research will say it's definitely overblown. So by no means is there a consensus. There's going to be a lot more. There's a need for a lot more research, right? A few more years, right, of us taking a look at the issue to really figure out, how big is the problem and how is it affecting us. So here are what some reviews of current misinformation research have to say about the topic. In the annual review of public health, they published that rumors spread by more than 3 million individuals on Twitter amounted to 126,000 examples of misinformation. The authors found that false information diffused significantly farther, faster, deeper, and more broadly than did the true information. So there's something viral about misinformation, right? There's something that makes it appealing to people more than the truth. So that's what one research example says. They also said that when reviewing health data, right, they found that 70% of the studies they found had a quality problem, right, had an issue with the truth. So they pulled certain metrics, right, to decide what was accurate, what was quality information on the internet, right, quality studies, if you can even call them studies. But yeah, there's a lot of poor health information online as well. And then another study, they found that political fake news engagement was extremely concentrated on Twitter. So not that Twitter is the only one that had fake news engagement, but that on Twitter itself, right, the actual people engaging with fake news was very, very small amount. So it's about 1% of individuals saw 80% of the fake news sources. So the fake news is really circulating in small circles, is what this study is saying. And then they say that only 0.1% could be defined as super shares. So individuals that most likely engage with fake news. So there's really a small group of people, right, according to this study, that are actually engaging and perpetuating misinformation. They did find that most of those super shares were conservative leaning, highly engaged with political news, and older adults. So that's just one study, one review of several studies. So, Social Media and Society, they published that during the 2016 US presidential campaign, the top 20 fake news stories on Facebook accumulated nearly 9 million shares. As we'll see that during that election, there was actually a very sophisticated disinformation campaign. So somebody was actually deliberately trying to spread fake news, fake information, inf- basically to inflame people, right, to get them angry. We'll see who the culprit was in the next few slides. So yeah, now they say 9 million interactions on Facebook, right? Those fake news stories, right, during the presidential election. They say, what does that actually mean? Well, they argue that that's not, that big of a share, right, of all the engagement that occurs on Facebook and other platforms like Twitter, right? They're saying that it's smaller than it actually appears. But to me, I think 9 million, right, we can argue, right, is still a huge number, even if it's relatively small, right, to the total engagement that happens on those social media sites. And as we know, right, we don't just engage with this information on the internet. We take what we learn on the internet, right, and we share it with other people through word of mouth, right, through our interactions, through our friendships, through our family. So who's to say, right, that those 9 million shares are making a big impact? In the perspectives of psychological science, they were reviewing the problem of misinformation, and they found that many disciplines agree that the issue is not new, but that modern technology essentially makes the issue worse. Because the internet, right, makes it a lot easier to spread information, to get a mass audience, right, to get a bunch of eyes on something that you publish, right. You don't have to be famous, right. You could just organically get those views and become viral, right? I know plenty of people, right, who are not famous and who every so often actually generate a viral post. So we all have the potential, right, to reach millions of people through the internet. So that's what some of the current research says on the problem of misinformation. Some say it's a big problem, some say it's not that bad, and others acknowledge that misinformation, it's not new, but perhaps the internet is making it worse.